So you'll notice, if you just look at the content, we are dwelling on the positive first, because we're storing up this like bucket of goodwill, as it were, so that when we get to dealing with conflict, which every marriage will of necessity have one. And I'll go further. Every marriage at some point will encounter a significant struggle. Mark it down. It's coming. And I don't think anybody escapes. So just be prepared for it. So the difference is this. I've seen the same situation affect two different marriages. One leads to divorce, and whether the other couple, same situation, but led to a much deeper bond. Why is that? What's the difference? Well, if we go to Gottman, already up until this point, we see this. One of the couples had positive sentiment override. The other one had negative sentiment override. And we're going to elaborate on that further. That is to say, one couple had a much deeper fondness and admiration for each other than the other did. That's part of the equation. Which is to say, they had a deeper friendship. Okay. Which, when I say friendship, ultimately, just generically, I can say had a deeper love. Because what do friends do for each other? Friends see, know, and understand one another. And through that, our souls are fulfilled. We feel loved. That's friendship. So think of the marriage is supposed to even be a deeper friendship, because we're way more intimate with each other. So what does that mean? That means we're even more fully seen, known, understood. That's why I say, the way I put it, of course I'm a pastor, of course I'm going to say this, so bear with me. The church and marriage both are institutions designed by God for one of the biggest purposes for those two institutions is to bring and facilitate healing. Like in a church, you imagine you come into a place where everybody's got an image on, armor on. That's a church where you can't fully see, know, and understand anyone. It's all about image, right? We all have to be perfect people. So in an environment like that, just think about it. You can't experience healing because there is no... we've gone through this at our church. I'm sorry for repeating myself, but for those who are new, we argue this. There is no other alternative to healing than to experience through love. Healing from past shame, trauma, abuse, the pain that you're still carrying as a burden, there is no alternative to the healing of it other than love, and love defined as being seen, known, understood. So, church, yes, that should be happening. But a marriage even more so. Because why? There should be more vulnerability, and with more vulnerability comes the ability to be more fully seen, known, understood. Which gives us the ability to reassign the meaning of past negative experiences. Because when we recount those events, those past negative events, in light of, in the presence of an empathetic witness, that gives us the ability to reinterpret, reassign the meaning that we have attached to those past experiences. Now, that's counterintuitive, because our intuition says, experience pain, run. And we run where? We run into isolation. We run away from vulnerability and community. And so it is very easy to be in a marriage where your armor's still on. So what are you saying? You can know me this much, but no more. And why would anybody ever do that? Because it's shame. It's based on shame. It says, if you really knew me, you would reject me. So I got to keep my armor on because I value the relationship, but I can't let you know everything that's going on because I'm afraid of abandonment. Because when I was vulnerable in the past, I met pain. And so I'm protecting myself from more vulnerability in the future because I don't want more pain. Now that's going to wreak havoc on a marriage. A marriage should be the safest place ever. And when it is functioning the way God designed it, it's going to be able to function the way it's intended to bring healing. That is why, one reason we would say that your spouse, and this is critical, your spouse should be, I'll go further, must be your best friend. For all the reasons I just named. Okay. So, We don't have a lot of, that was all by way of introduction. Okay, yeah, quick announcement. If possible, that sign-up sheet last week, anybody put their email address down, I sent you the notes. I'm putting a lot of time in those notes, just so you know, because I want to put a valuable resource in your hands. Save you time, be efficient, way of review, all those things. So if you didn't put your email address down and you want to receive what I sent, I'm trying to send you only stuff that's gold. I don't want to waste your time. Put your email address down. Further, if you feel so inclined and comfortable, I would like you to put down your cell phone number so that, here's the rules. There's rules, okay? Ready? So that I can send group texts to anyone who wants to get them, but very specific texts. And I don't want anybody to respond to those texts unless you're absolutely convinced that your response is beneficial for the whole group. Okay, it's not good. It's not for jokes and memes and whatever. You can do other chats for that, and those are great, but not for this one, okay? I want to send you reminders, and maybe I'll pull out specific quotes throughout the week because I just want to encourage you, okay? And I only want to text you stuff that I think is gold. Or if I find out someone has a question that's relevant for the whole group, I want to answer that question to the group, okay? So if you feel so inclined to be a part of that, I will be trying to steward that trust that you would give me by giving your phone number very carefully. Okay, so that's in the back. Anybody who doesn't have a book, will you raise your hand? Okay, I think I'm going to do something I wasn't going to do, but I'm going to do it. How many of you are caught up on the exercises through, scary, right? Chapter 4. Okay. Okay, thank you for your honesty. Thank you for your honesty. I'll just say that, again, not to guilt or shame anyone, just to encourage you. You're going to get out what you put in, but I think if I had to guess, the reason for some of us not being able to complete it is because we found out it's more time intensive than we might have guessed. It's hardcore, okay? And just to encourage you, you're going to get out what you put in. This is a process. It's not a cut and paste. So it's kind of an all or nothing deal, and I don't want to scare you away by saying that. So, in my perspective, by way of review, chapter 3 has been the most important content thus far. And then exercise 3 from chapter 4, which was the first group of exercises. Exercise 3, which has you journaling. Now, I'm a huge fan of journaling, have been for a little while now, because of its practical ability to facilitate healing. Now, what it's asking you to write out and then in the journal and then share with your spouse, those are some of the best journaling questions that I've ever encountered. And I collect them like as a hobby, okay, for fun. Now, you may not be aware of, you may not value journaling, okay? It may be like, why do you do that again? What's that for? Is that just like a record of my life, like for posterity? So I want to spend like just a couple minutes giving you brief highlights as to why, the mechanics of why journaling is even effective, why it even works, okay? Now, because I can only go into summary right now, if you have any detailed questions, I could talk about this for like 2 hours easy. So if you have any questions about it, please let me know, and I'm happy to spend some time with you just to encourage you to go through the process. Okay. Before I do that, however, how many of us can name the Four Horsemen? You may not be able to yet, but I want us to be able to memorize them because why? Because functionally, practically, we need, in order for this to work, we need to be able to be on the lookout for when they emerge in our relationship, particularly our marriage, okay? So, for those who know them, you have a cheat sheet in front of you probably. It's called the book. You could open that. But if you want to just recount those with us right now in order, number 1 is criticism. Well done. Number 2 is contempt, a facet of shame. Excellent. Contempt. So criticism, contempt. Number 3 is defensiveness. So it's like a ping pong match, back and forth, one to the other. Number 4 is stonewalling as a result, really, of feeling flooded. You feel psychologically, physiologically overwhelmed. You check out, which looks to the outside observer as stonewalling, okay? But it's a protection mechanism because you've gone into fight or flight, your adrenaline's kicking, okay? And you perceive the situation as dangerous. All right. So that's pretty good. Don't forget about the idea of harsh startups, using criticism, sarcasm within the first 3 minutes of a conversation. You might as well quit, come back to it later. Don't forget about repair attempts. Repair attempts. We should all be making repair attempts when we failed. And we should also simultaneously be on the lookout when our spouse is seeking to make a repair attempt, because in a bad marriage, a lot of the repair attempts get unnoticed. They get unnoticed. All right. So, why is the journaling process so important from those questions in chapter 4 from exercise 3? Because the journaling process is so important because, like I said, first off, it's some of the best journaling questions I've seen. Secondly, because our past, the negative stuff from the past, gets carried into the present. I'm going to go in a little bit of detail. The past gets carried into the present and can lead to what Gottman refers to as negative sentiment override. Now, you can have negative sentiment override in a marriage, but the negativity ultimately is sourced not from interaction within the marriage, but is sourced from the childhood. I absolutely believe that to be true because I've experienced it in my life and in the lives of so many others. Okay? Journaling, however, allows you to, as we said, to reassign and reinterpret the meaning of your past experiences. And the example I often give here is from Genesis 50, I think it's verse 20. Joseph says to his brothers, after he'd been sold into slavery, at the end of it all, he says to his brothers, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." I don't think he was thinking that when he was being carried away by the slave traders. But he, through a process, was able to come to reassign the meaning of that past experience by when he experienced full betrayal from his brothers. Okay. Journaling allows you to do that. If there's shaming happening in your marriage, it is likely that it's because one or both parties is carrying shame from the past. And that shame was likely instilled in you during your childhood. When I say likely, that's statistical probability. Okay, just look at all the numbers from everybody's story around the world in history. That's just statistical probability from your childhood. And here's where we say time does not, will not, cannot heal all wounds. It just can't. They have to be worked through, and it's a process. So one place to start, you think, well, I never thought about that. I never encountered that idea before, concept. One place to start to consider whether this may be the case is not to put our heads in the sand, but rather to think, here's a question I like to ask, just to get the ball rolling. How much empathy did you experience from your parents growing up? That would tell us a lot. How much empathy did you experience from a parental unit, as it were? No, I was kidding. A guardian or just a parental figure growing up. Here's why. Because if you didn't get a lot of empathy, here's what I know about human nature. We have to feel our feelings. Which means also that we have to pay attention to what we're paying attention to. We have to pay attention to what our soul is looking for. So, feeling the feelings, here's how I put it. Feelings that aren't expressed get carried into the future as burdens. Feelings, so for instance, if there's a child, I'm just going to give an extreme example just to get us locked into the concept. If a child is, say, being abused, God forbid, he can't express himself. He can't fight, he can't flee. Oftentimes, in a case like that, there's nothing they can do about it. So what happens to all those feelings of being terrified? They can't be expressed. They can't be expressed, so they get carried. So feelings that can't be expressed get carried as burdens. And I say all that to say, the negative sentiment override or negativity or whatever it is, the apathy, the neglect, the passive aggressiveness, the cold anger, whatever it might be, could have not originated in the marriage itself, but originated before that, and you brought those patterns of behavior that got hardwired into the marriage already. So you're predisposed. Now, that's not always the case, but more often than not, I think that it is. Now, if feelings that aren't expressed get carried into the future as burdens because time can't heal all wounds, journaling now allows you to fully express feelings so that you can let them go. I can walk away from my journal, but I can't walk away from the ruminating going on in my head. So I always say it this way: the pain, the shame that we carry inside internally as a burden that time doesn't heal has to go from the inside to the outside so you can lay it down and let it go. Journaling facilitates that process. There's a sense in which, the way I describe it, is the shame from the past, whatever it might be, whatever context it might be, it has a lot more strength and a lot tighter grip when it remains an internal dialogue of rumination. So as we journal it out, it's like the grip of it begins to loosen. Okay? Further, when you have the courage to read what you've journaled in the presence of an empathetic witness, and it would be amazing if that would be your wife, your spouse, it loses more of its grip. Because why? You're able to step outside yourself and see yourself and then reassign the meaning. And you're able to have the courage to do that and redo what you were so counterintuitively never did, is to approach the shame, something you may have never had the courage to do. You're able to do that because you're encouraged, filled with courage, because your spouse is seeing you, knowing you, understand you as you read that out. You feel loved. So here's what's happening. There's a different bond that's forming. Whereas before you experienced pain as a result of the shame, now as you recount that shame, a new bond and a new association is being created because of the empathetic witness. That love is empowering you so that instead of recounting the events and you feel the pain from before because you're replaying it in your mind, now you're having a different feeling, a different emotion, which is super weird because you haven't had that before. So you're feeling something different now. You're recounting the shame, but simultaneously and emotionally feeling love. Can you see how that new combination would be like taking a sledgehammer and smashing, hopefully to smithereens, that past experience, so that of necessity you would be reassigning the meaning of that past experience? Can you see how that works functionally? Now, if you're feeling feelings, and a lot of times we're oblivious to it because we don't even pay attention. We don't even know ourselves because we have our armor on, and we just keep increasing the layers of that armor, and we've been running from the pain, the shame for so long, we can become oblivious to it. But as we begin to pay attention to these things, I would ask you, and I'm almost done here, I would ask you to say, as you pay attention, am I still ruminating about things that happened to me a long time ago, say 5 years ago, let's say? And if that's the case, what are you waiting for? Because time's not going to do it. And I don't mean to put this bluntly or callously. It's because you haven't done the work. You haven't done the work of going through the process, most likely because you don't know what the process is. You may not even know that there is one. Now, we're oftentimes in our pop culture society, we are aware of a grieving process. Now, just to illustrate real briefly, why is it that we have funerals in our society? Why are funerals absolutely important? The person who passed on is not going to be there and depending on your belief, it may be completely oblivious that there was even a funeral that took place. So what does that tell us? The funeral's for who? The people left behind, because we miss our loved one. And it's really important for us to grieve. Tears need to be shed. So for instance, I always say, if you're at a funeral and someone starts to cry, do not interrupt that. But a lot of times we do interrupt it because it makes us feel awkward and uncomfortable. So we try to hug them or try to feel like we're obligated for some weird reason to give them some piece of advice that comes off being very shallow and insensitive. But instead, all they need to do is be allowed to cry in the presence of empathy. And then at the end, when they're done crying, then you can give them a hug. And it's your presence there that will help them more than anything. Your presence to grieve with them. Now, what happens is if we don't get a chance to grieve, we carry it with us. Why? Why? It's just what we've been saying. The feelings didn't get a chance to get expressed. You didn't go through the grieving process that it's your soul that needs. Okay. So if you're still feeling feelings from, say, 5 years ago, it's because you haven't done the work of healing, because healing is work. It takes intentionality and strategy, wisdom, and it's most likely because you don't know what the process is, and there's people around you in this community, I promise you, that will help you go through that if you're encountering those ideas for the first time. We do not have to carry the pain with us. You may not be able to set it down in a second or in one encounter, but you certainly do not have to carry it for a lifetime. I promise you. So just know that for yourself and for others. It can be scary because you have to re-access the shame. I'll put it a better way. You have to re-access the trauma from the past without being re-traumatized. And the only way you're going to keep from being re-traumatized by encountering the trauma from the past is if it's in the presence of empathy and love. That changes everything. So I think God knew what he was talking about and what humans that he made in his own image needed when he designed marriage, when he designed the church. Because this is how those two institutions are supposed to function, just by built-in, embedded default. Love, healing. All right, so that's a quick summary. Try to encourage you to journal. Even if you don't fully understand it, I want you to experience it. Now, for tonight, I'm going to give I'm just going to pull out the little nugget bullet points that I found from tonight's material, chapter 5. And then very quickly, you're going to be released to begin the exercises. The exercises, in my opinion, they're gold. Because as you'll see, what is happening? What is happening tonight? We are further building on the fondness and admiration. What does that mean? We are building up the positivity in your relationship such that when you get to the conflict, you're going to be looking at it through new eyes. And that's critical because we can't keep doing the same things expecting different results. If you're a newlywed, it's so awesome. If you've been just married, you haven't experienced a lot of the negativity that I say is coming if you're not prepared, or if you are prepared, either way, it's just going to have a different outcome. Then what's happening for you? There's nothing to fix. You're being prepared. You're coming as close to bulletproof as your marriage can be. And you're being taught what's important to become bulletproof. So you can take that with you, so you can value it. So for instance, sometimes there are very valuable things in life. We don't know that they're valuable because we're young. For instance, friendships. Friendships come easily in our youth, usually. But the older we get, the more intentionality they take. And we learn, because it is harder, to more fully appreciate and value the friendships that we do have. Okay, there's an example. So I'm going to run through this material, and I'm going to release you to do the exercises. But the last exercise of tonight is exercise 4. That one's going to be the critical one. Now, if you haven't read ahead, I'm going to tell you now, just briefly, tonight's 4th exercise launches a 7-week exercise. Are you scared yet? What is it? 5 days out of the week, you're asked to do 2 things. Meditate on a specific positive thing about your spouse throughout the day, and then communicate that to your spouse later on. Now, it's 5 days a week for 7 weeks. Each day has a specific thing. So what I did is I photocopied that, the 7 weeks, so you can put it on your refrigerator. Okay? Now, I promise you, just think about it. 7 weeks times 5 days in the week, 35 days of spending all day thinking about the positive traits and qualities, things you really deeply appreciate, maybe you forgot you appreciated about your spouse. Do you not think that's going to change your mindset? It will give you a different lens. And further, if there is conflict in the marriage, when you bring that positivity of 7 weeks to a conflict, do you think that might it be true that you come to a different conclusion? Yes. It's a game changer, if you ask me. Okay, so I have those photocopied. I want to give those to you before you leave. So let's begin just briefly the material that we got from the brief chapter 5, and herein contained is some very basic information, but needs to be said. Needs to be said. To me, it's gold. Simple, but gold. Here it is. Here we go. Fondness and admiration, that's going to come up a lot, are two of the most crucial elements in a rewarding and long-lasting romance. Fondness and admiration. What page? Not sure. Fondness and admiration, powerful. Essential to a long-lasting romance. Fondness and admiration. Now, the best test, and I said this before briefly, but it elaborates a little bit. The best test, because maybe some of you out there in live streaming here tonight even are thinking, maybe we're past the point, maybe divorce is the best choice. That's a possibility. Maybe divorce is the best choice. So Gottman is giving us kind of a litmus test to make that a better assessment. Here it is. The best test of whether a couple still have a functioning fondness and admiration. It's functional. It fulfills a purpose. A functioning fondness and admiration. Yes, Jim. Yes, I can. Is usually how they view their past. How does a couple view their past? If a marriage is troubled, asking a couple about the current state of affairs is not likely to elicit much mutual praise. You ask the couple, hey, how are you doing? How's your situation in your marriage? That's all you get? That's not going to tell you much. Not going to tell you much. So let's put that aside. What will tell us the actual state of affairs? But ask them about the past, and you can often detect embers of positive feelings. How'd you meet? How'd you begin dating? How'd you get engaged? What attracted you to your spouse to begin with? Oh, if you ask me that question, I mean, it is like, I get good, like my wife, it was like she was just floating in this little cloud of magic and sunshine around the school campus as a freshman. And it was, what I come to find out is the college campus was kind of a dark place, a lot of rules, very rigid. And here comes this cloud of magical sunshine, just walking through like that. Like I can tell you like all kinds of things. And I discovered when I first encounter with her, like I have to know this woman. I won't say I have to have her because that sounds too possessive and controlling and abusive, but I need to know her. And I did something I never did before. I went out and picked wildflowers and wrote a little note and put it on the windshield of her car, under the windshield wiper, while she was at work. And that was like stalking. But I didn't care. I got to do this. And I barely knew her. And I didn't tell her who it was. I let her guess. Now, there were multiple guys stalking her at the time, or pursuing her at the time. So she had to think through, and I was just messing with her, right? Because I wanted to make a connection. the big reveal. Oh, it was you. Oh, and hopefully I would see that, oh, yeah, it was you, or, oh, it was you. So, recounting the past, like I love to talk about that. So, if you see a person and you get nothing but contempt and disgust when they're recounting their past, that's bad. And we're going to see why in a moment. But if it becomes like suddenly the mood lightens and like go into what I just did, something like that, going in that direction, lots of positivity. There's like a lot of hope. Now, if there is no hope at that moment, because of reasons we're going to see, that can all be restored. Can I encourage you tonight? That can all be restored. Why? Because there was romance at some point. Like we said last week, no one forced you at gunpoint to marry your spouse. So whatever you had must have been good. It can be recovered. It can be recovered. Okay? Do not be so rigid that you do all your analysis through the lens of where you're at currently. That's too rigid. You won't come to an accurate conclusion or assessment. And most often, people don't come to fully appreciate their marriage until they're divorced, when it's troubled. Okay? So, the negativity, what Gottman calls negative sentiment override, I'm going to keep repeating these terms so you can remember them. The negative sentiment override can become so bad, here it is, that it has become a virulent cancer, actually spreading backward in time and destroying the couple's positive memories. So before, it's gotten so bad right now that when you look back at your dating relationship or whatever, all you can see is the negative. That's when you know you're in a really bad way. Okay? But there's still hope, just so you know. But that's a really good litmus test, a way to do analysis and assessment. So you're spreading backward in time and destroying the couple's positive memories. So it's infecting them. Having a fundamentally positive view of your spouse and your marriage is a powerful buffer when bad times hit. Having a fundamentally positive. So can you see the necessity of intentionally and consistently having date nights? Are date nights about just getting good food and watching a good movie? No. Like if all your date nights were just watching a movie, those would not be date nights. Well, because, to some degree, because you got it was a really good movie, and you got that positive experience together, but going further, having discussion, conversation, where the other party feels seen, known, understood. If you're consistently investing in the relationship that way, because marriage takes work, but it should be fun work, then guess what? When the negativity comes, when the conflict comes, when the struggle comes, you already got your armor on prepared, and a good armor, not the armor that keeps you from being loved, but an armor that protects your marriage so the love can continue. Okay. Now, so having that fundamentally positive view. Now, the antidote, here's the cure to contempt. Because without intentionality, disgust and contempt will emerge in every relationship, every marriage. It will just happen. You ever had a roommate before you got married? What happens? Familiarity breeds contempt. You're good friends, but you get so familiar, they start to irritate you. Everything because they stopped taking out the trash and stopped washing their dishes, and you didn't have any communication. You just sucked it up and didn't talk to them. And next thing you know, you can't stand them. They irritate you. Every little thing. Hear them breathing in the other room irritates you. Okay? Now, the antidote to contempt, which is a subcategory of shame. This may seem obvious. Here's a nugget here. Ready? This may seem obvious, but people who are happily married, are you ready? So deep. Maybe too complex for you guys to get. Are you ready? People who are happily married like each other. No, they do. They do. No, it's true. I'm telling you, they do. They like each other. They like to be around each other. Did Gottman just lose all credibility? Like, no, it's not impossible. Like, forget this course. I knew it wasn't all it was supposed to be. No, they like each other, but fondness and admiration can be very fragile unless you remain aware of how crucial they are to the friendship that is the core of any good marriage. By simply reminding yourself of your spouse's positive qualities, even as you grapple with each other's flaws, you can prevent a happy marriage from deteriorating. Which reminds me, there's 7 weeks coming up, right? We're going to be very intentional with that on the refrigerator to remind us, and you're going to take pictures of the exercise on your phone, so if you remember while you're at work, you can still look at it. And you're going to have like 5 screenshots on your phone, maybe in a special folder, so you can access it every day. There will come a time during the 7 weeks, most likely, where you're going to have a fight. Right? There's going to be a disagreement. Maybe some heat's going to be added. Guess what? You are not off the hook. Not off the hook. You still have to do the exercise. You can't just write down, oh, we're in a fight, so forget this. Pass. No, there's no passes. And can you see how good that's going to be for you? Because you're not going to want to do it. You're going to no, let's not focus on the positive. Forget that. What a terrible idea. Negative. That's what I'm thinking about right now. Big time. Let me tell you all about it. But we've been doing that. So if you do the work, it's like going to be like going to the gym. Like, positive. Something positive. If you'll work through it, it's going to change things, okay? You're not off the hook. Neither am I. So reminding yourself of your spouse's positive qualities, even as you grapple with each other's flaws, you can prevent a happy marriage from deteriorating. The simple reason is that fondness and admiration, as we said, are antidotes for contempt. You cannot be neutral in this. You can't just say, I'm going to stop hating my spouse. You can't do that. It's not going to work. You got to replace it with something else. So what Gottman's having us doing is being proactive. Going on the offense now. Like, we're going to claim the territory. We're not just defending, the fort. We're going after the fondness and admiration. Okay? Critical. So if you maintain a sense of respect for your spouse, you are less likely to act disgusted with him or her when you disagree. So fondness and admiration prevent you from being trounced by the Four Horsemen. The key to reinvigorating fondness and admiration is, and this is another gold nugget, is to get in the habit of scanning for qualities and actions that you can appreciate. Some of you may push back, as Gottman says, and say, hey, this feels a little fake to me because I'm not feeling this. That's not a good enough of an excuse. You're scanning for qualities and actions that you can appreciate, and then you're letting your partner know what you've observed and are grateful for. These everyday thank yous don't have to be about momentous acts on your spouse's part. Search for the small everyday moments. Catch your partner doing something little, like doing little right, and then offer a genuine appreciation like, quote, I love the way you handled the teacher conference yesterday, or thanks for making my sister feel welcome here, or even, you look so hot in that outfit. Now, that's a direct quote from Gottman. I would never say that, right, Rebecca? You look so hot in that outfit. I don't use the word hot. Maybe beautiful? Yeah, but those things need to be expressed. When couples who are struggling in their marriages were asked, check us out, were asked to tally up how many positive interactions had occurred during a specific event, and then some objective observers were asked to tally up the same thing, they discovered that couples who described themselves as unhappily married only noticed half of the positive interactions that actually occurred. There was way more positive interaction going on than what was noticed. So the outside observers saw everything, but the couple in it, maybe a few times, but no, it was way more than that. They missed 50% of it. Because they were so used to tuning into their partner's mistakes. So I think it goes like this. If I ask you to look around the room and find something blue, how many of you saw something red? You know what I mean? Like, you're going to get what you're looking for. If you're looking for negative, you're going to get negative. If that's the habit, the rut, the hard wire that you've gotten into, that's what you're going to get. It's self-fulfilling prophecy like, right? If your fondness and admiration, we're almost done. If your fondness and admiration are being chipped away, the route to bringing them back always begins with realizing how valuable they are. Remember, fondness and admiration are the antidote to contempt. Contempt is a corrosive, just like we said earlier, virulent cancer, is a corrosive that over time breaks down the bond between husband and wife. Did you guys catch that? I'm going to say it again. So there's this bond where you guys are bonded together, like there's some super strong super glue with you two. But the contempt is like dissolving the super glue. You guys are drifting apart. It's the contempt that's doing that. What is contempt? Yeah. Yes, Henkel. Yes. You guys make all those products. I know that. I look on the fine print. It's okay. Carl and I, we got our private jokes, right, don't we? Yeah. No, I know where she works and what the products they make, and I'm a fan. So, the contempt is a corrosive that over time breaks down the bond between husband and wife. The better in touch you are with your deep-seated positive feelings for each other, the less likely that you will act with contempt toward your spouse when you have a difference of opinion. So you build the positivity, which results in when you get in a fight, you're not importing all this cancer, all this corrosive. There is nothing, check this out, it's another nugget, and we're almost done. There's nothing complicated about reviving or enhancing your fondness and admiration. That's good news. There is nothing complicated about reviving or enhancing your fondness and admiration. Nothing complicated about it. You want to know how complicated it is? How simple it is? Even long buried positive feelings can be brought back simply by what? Here's the answer. Thinking and talking about them. Oh, that's it? Yeah. Isn't that good to know? You can revive it just by thinking of it, which is what the exercise is going to do for the next 7 weeks. Thinking about it, talking about it. You need to be reminded. You need to be reminded of who you are in that relationship. Together. When I mean who you are together. Who the we would be. Okay? You can do this by meditating a bit on your partner and what makes you treasure him or her. When you acknowledge and openly discuss positive aspects of your partner and your marriage, your bond is strengthened. Let me say it again. When you acknowledge and openly discuss positive aspects of your partner and your marriage, your bond is strengthened. So if you will do the exercise, even exercise 1, exercise 2, if you'll just do the exercise of necessity, like law of the universe idea, your bond's going to be strengthened. It just is. It cannot be otherwise. Unless you're not engaged. It's just unless it's purely lip service. Okay? Now, let me ask you a question as I close here. Do you cherish your partner? Yes. Do you cherish your partner? I hope everybody's head's shaking yes. That begs the question, what does cherish even mean? So let's define it really briefly. Because if you don't think about cherishing, we said that, most of us probably said that in our marriage vows, right? The word cherish is one of the marriage vow and that ceremony is one of the few occasions in our culture today where the word cherish emerges. And we don't use it very much, right? Am I right? So how often do you think happily about your partner when you're apart? How often do you think happily about your partner when you're apart? That's a great question. Because you think, well, not much or ever or at all. But guess what? By doing the exercises, it's going to change that. You're going to have happy things to think about. I catch myself doing this, right? And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll text my wife right there in that moment what I'm thinking. And it really works well. because I'm really in the moment, like focused heavily on that thought about her. And so I want to get it to her while I'm feeling that passion. So I texted you this morning, right? And I don't want to share what that was. It was G-rated, okay? But it's a little intimate, okay, in other ways. How often do you think happily about your partner when you're apart? Do you reflect with pride on his or her many wonderful traits? Such thoughts comprise cherishing, which is a critical component of a couple's fondness and admiration system, the cherishing. Cherishing is a habit of mind in which, when you're separated, during the course of a day, you maximize thoughts of your partner's positive qualities and minimize thoughts of the negative ones. This active focusing on your partner's merits allows you to nurture gratefulness for what you have instead of resenting what is missing. Many couples do not realize they are neglecting to cherish each other. You can choose what to focus on. Okay? And if you forgot how, these exercises are so good. Last sentence. Last two sentences and I'm done. Alternatively, if you are angry, stressed, or feeling distant from your spouse, you may tend to focus on his or her negative characteristics. What is that? If you're feeling angry, stressed, or distant, you may choose instead to focus on the negative stuff. Guess what? All of us have negative stuff. It shouldn't be a huge discovery, like, oh, the person I married is flawed. Like, yeah, who's not? Like newlyweds, they're still discovering that, right? Let them have their newlywed time. I do not want to interrupt that. It's precious time. Because what are newlyweds going to be doing? They're going to be recounting the precious time in the future when they need it, when they're doing what we're talking about tonight. So I always want to celebrate newlyweds. So focusing on the negative characteristics, this leads to distress-maintaining thoughts. Distress-maintaining thoughts. So you have distress, let's keep it going. More distress. Let's keep the ball rolling on the distress. Which in turn leave you feeling ever more distant and isolated in your marriage, which is part of the feedback loop he talked about in the last chapter. Okay? That's it. So we say all that to say, let's do these exercises and expect it to have the result that it will have. Okay? They're actually fun. They're just fun. Okay? Now the first exercise is you're going to be able to grade yourself and see where you're at. And you say, well, if you got a low score, guess what? There's opportunity to go into the next exercises, particularly exercise 4, and change all that. So you can be in a whole different place, okay? I will deliver to all the couples the list of the 7-week exercise while you're doing your thing. So I'm going to dismiss you now. Put your phone number down if you're so inclined. You can go anywhere in the building. You can bring chairs with you, move furniture, whatever you got to do. Have at it. If you need a journal, there's still more journals. There's pens. If you don't have a book, let me know. I think you guys are good, and you can stay as long or as little as you want to, okay? But it is involved, so staying current is going to be helpful, because I don't want you to feel overwhelmed and you just pitch the whole thing because it's too much. Try to stay current if you can, but that's why I'm telling you what the most important exercises are. Okay, I'm going to stop talking now. You're dismissed. Unless there's a question. Oh, I want to talk to the singles. All right, David, cut the live stream. Bye, every live stream. Bye, y'all. If you're not already gone already, I'm talking to myself.